Hello and welcome back to Culinary Haven. If you were looking for the best cinnamon roll recipe, look no further, I've got it for you. The recipe that I'm going to show you today is the perfect cinnamon roll. I've tried many, and this is the one. Let's begin. Not only are these cinnamon rolls the best, they're also the easiest to make. Even though it's a yeast dough, there is no kneading involved at any point. There's a long fermentation period to actually make the dough that we can eventually roll out, but you won't be a part of it. You'll see. To make Culinary Haven cinnamon rolls, we'll need 120 ml of boiling water, 120 grams of butter, 60 grams of sugar, 2 large eggs, 20 grams of dried skimmed milk, 300 grams of plain flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 5 grams of instant yeast. That's the dough. And for the filling, we'll need 50 grams of butter, 40 grams of soft brown sugar, 40 grams of white granulated sugar, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 2 handfuls of currants. And for the glaze, 150 grams of icing sugar, 1 or 2, depends on your taste, of vanilla sugar. The reason we're using vanilla sugar rather than vanilla extract is that vanilla extract is brown and we want our glaze to be as white as possible. That's why we're using vanilla sugar. So 1 or 2 teaspoons and 2 tablespoons of hot milk. And we'll start with preparing the dough. So I've just measured here 120 ml of boiling water, and I'm adding the butter into it, which will cool down the water and melt the butter. So that's the idea. And the sugar, 60 grams of granulated sugar. We'll just let it sit for a couple of minutes until the butter melts somewhat and softens significantly, and then we'll continue. So we're nearly there. You could of course use just warm water and melt the butter and then combine them together, but I just find this easier. That's what hitting 2 birds with 1 stone means. This is it, that's enough. The water is not hot anymore and the butter has almost melted. And now we're going to add the eggs. 2 eggs, crack them into the bowl and whisk it all together. Nothing major, just loosen them up, the egg. Next step, we'll sift the flour, 300 grams of plain flour, 20 grams of dried milk, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 5 grams, which is approximately sort of heaped teaspoon of yeast. Sift them into the bowl. These rolls are just something else. They're soft, light, fluffy. They're just everything you ever wanted a cinnamon roll to be. But you'll have to try it for yourself. And now we're going to pour this into this. It's not hot anymore, it's just a lovely lukewarm temperature, and mix it all together. And that is our dough. At the moment, you can't call it a sticky dough because it's just very loose. It's almost the consistency of a pancake batter. Impossible to just dump it on the worktop and knead. And we're not going to try. What we're doing is just mixing it thoroughly, all of these ingredients together. I'll show you in a minute what it looks like just now. So this is the consistency. Don't panic, don't worry, don't think what kind of dough is that, how am I gonna roll it out? It's just a batter. It will be fine. This is enough and we just leave it at that. And now we're just going to cover it tightly with a piece of cling film and put it in the warmest place in your house for about 2, maybe 2.5 hours until it's doubled in volume. Just give it as much time as it needs. It may take 3 hours. What's the big deal? You don't need to do anything. just let it be and let it rise. It's been 2 hours and our dough has more than doubled actually in size and volume. And now we're going to deflate it and cover it again and put it in the fridge for at least 6 hours. Better yet, overnight. So I would advise you do it either early in the morning and then just leave it in the fridge all day and bake in the evening, or just make it in the afternoon, let it rise and put it in the fridge and bake the next day. It's for best results because the butter will of course solidify and the dough will continue developing and it will have the perfect texture. It will not be soft and loose and unmanageable. It will be the perfect dough that we will roll out and make our cinnamon rolls. So as you can see, all these bubbles of the yeast expanded the dough. It's risen beautifully and we're just going to gently deflate it again, but it is still, as you can see, very soft, very loose. We can't work with this just now, but everything is going well. It's just where it's supposed to be and we just need to give it some time. But I think it's not a big disappointment, considering there is no tedious kneading of the dough, and especially if you're a novice to baking and you're not sure how to knead the dough, but you still want cinnamon rolls, this is the recipe. It's literally just mixing things like so and then leaving them for hours on end until the dough is ready to be just rolled out into a sheet and rolled up and cut into rolls. So that's that. We're just going to cover it and put it in the fridge. Get carried away and scrunch the piece of cling film, so I'm just gonna put a new one into the fridge for at least 6 hours. And here we are with some movie magic. We have the chilled dough here. You can see it's very firm and has risen again because even though it was in the fridge, the yeast continues to grow much slower, but it's still rising. So now we're going to roll it out. Let's prepare our filling, which is 40 grams of soft brown sugar, 40 grams of white sugar, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and we're whisking it all together with a tiny whisk. Now we're going to sprinkle the surface with some flour, but I forgot to mention that this amount of dough will give us 8 large, beautiful cinnamon rolls. You can bake them in any oven-proof dish you like. You can make them in a rectangular baking tray lined with baking parchment. That's what I'm going to do today. Or you can make them in a round dish and arrange them like a flower, any way you like. We're making them today in the rectangular dish, 4 on each side. Let's roll the dough. Flour the rolling pin and get the dough out. Look, it was absolutely unmanageable soft dough, and after so many hours in the fridge, it's a lovely, light yet pliable and manageable dough. So we just press it down, just make sure it's not sticking. If it is, not a big deal, we'll just move it around. So we're rolling it out into a large rectangle. Just keep checking that it's not sticking, because we'll need to roll it up and we don't want it to be stuck to the surface. So see, couldn't possibly be easier to work with. Absolutely incredibly lovely, soft, pliable dough. into a rectangle with a straight sides as we can. We do our best. Just stretch it a little bit. It's just, you can see what I'm doing here. It's like extremely easy to work with. No bother at all. What we're going to do now is spread the butter, or rather brush this dough with 50 grams of melted butter. Just make sure it's even in size, shape, and thickness. Take your butter, brush, and just brush it all over. Because the dough is so cold, the butter, as soon as it touches the cold dough, it sets again, which is good for us. It's not moving around, and it will keep the sugar mixture in place. See, it gets immediately sets because the dough is just out of the fridge. So everything is thought through, every step.
What kind of a brush are you using?
A pastry brush. Any pastry brush. It could be a silicone or just a traditional bristle. If you don't have any, you can do it by hand. Just spread it with your hand. Now we're going to sprinkle our sugar mixture all over. The exact amount, 40 grams of each white and brown sugar. And now the currants. It just, I thought it's such a great, lovely addition to this. It just gives additional different texture. They're tangy, just perfect. Just 2 handfuls is enough for this.
Can you use raisins?
You can use raisins, you can use cranberries, you can use sultanas, cherries, dry cherries, any dried fruit you like. I picked currants because they're small and because they have this tangy flavor. It's very nice with the sugary filling. And now we're going to roll it up into a log, just from the long side facing you. It's a rectangle, and we are starting from the long side of the rectangle facing you and just going upwards, rolling it into a log as tight as you can, which is not difficult either because the dough is still very nice and firm. There we go. And I'm just going to move it a little bit closer to me. Perfect. And now we're going to cut it. Just cut it in half, and then in half again, and then in half again. And now we're going to place them into our parchment-lined baking tray. Just press it down gently. Start from either sides just to keep the parchment in place. Remember to space them evenly because they will expand, of course. We're going to let them rise in a warm place for about 2 hours or so. So they need room to expand. So we're going to give them that.
Do they expand in the oven?
Yes, they will expand in the oven as well as when they bake. We'll try and film that if we manage, because it is a pretty picture. If you see this, the end just sticking out, it doesn't matter, first of all, and second, just press it down. It's fine. Press it down, that's fine. It will hold in place, don't worry about that. And the last one, press it down gently, each a roll. And now we're going to put them in a warm place to rise for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. Just keep an eye on them, at least an hour and a half, definitely, because they need to puff up really well before you bake them.
Does it depend on how warm your place is?
It does. Depends greatly on the temperature. And also, I would advise you to put them a cling film over them, or better yet, what I do is I put the tray, the whole tray, or a tin if you're making them in a round tin, into a large plastic bag and just put a clip at the end, and it creates the best temperature and the most pleasant atmosphere for the rolls to arise, swell up, and be ready to go into the oven. Just make sure it doesn't touch, which it doesn't, and in this manner it's going into a very warm place. It's been 2 hours and look at them now, all puffed up and ready to go. We're going to bake them in the preheated to 180 degrees Celsius oven for 25 minutes. Here we are. They're ready. I don't know if you can see them from there, but we will show you them close up. And now we'll quickly prepare the glaze. 150 grams of icing sugar and 2 tablespoons of hot milk and 1 teaspoon of vanilla sugar. Like I said, even a small amount of vanilla extract changes the color from super white to a little bit off-white. So to keep it white, we use vanilla sugar. Just stir it, it doesn't take long, and we'll apply the freshly made glaze onto hot cinnamon rolls. 10 seconds and the beautiful vanilla glaze is ready. Look at that. Now we just divide the glaze between the 8 rolls. It will just distribute itself over the hot cinnamon rolls. I don't like waste, so this amount is absolutely perfect for 8 rolls, and there won't be leftover. You don't know what to do with it. It's exact amount you need to glaze or to frost 8 cinnamon rolls. And now we just have to let them cool a little bit before we dig in. I really hope you will try and make our cinnamon rolls, and if you do, maybe you could let us know and send a photo. I would love to see that. And you can share your photos with us at culinaryhaventeam@gmail.com. Thank you for watching this episode of Culinary Haven, and until next time, bye.